Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Scott Garber back in the saddle of the Profluence Sports Podcast, where we're highlighting founders, investors, executives across the sports business landscape. Today, I'm excited to welcome our next guest, Barrick Prince, founder of the Creator Sports Network, truly revolutionizing the way we consume sports as emerging leagues and traditional leagues are looking to gain new viewership. But guys, you know it's not my story to tell. So Barrick, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Scott.
Man, beyond thrilled to have you. This was a long time coming. We've heard about you at, different phases of your journey, and, what you guys are doing with Creator Sports Network is truly revolutionary. But, I think it's important for all the listeners who aren't as familiar, just to get a little familiar with your origin story, where you come from, and sort of the lead up to what you're building now. So give us a little insight to the journey that brought you to Creator Sports Network.
Yeah, look, all of us are products of our experiences, right? And it's no different. How Creator Sports Network came about is it's really a product of my experience. Ultimately started as a television executive, about 20 years as a media executive, mostly buying and selling television shows around the world. That helped me sharpen a really important skill, the making of a content deal that has really paid dividends for us at Creator Sports Network. And then along that kind of television journey, I ended up the gaming guy in television, which is a different story for a different day, Scott. But that ultimately led me to becoming the head of original content development in sports for Twitch for a number of years and over the pandemic. And I was really kind of in charge of leading all of the development around our Twitch sports channel, which is kind of an owned and operated sports channel that really started doing back when we started. The world didn't have words for watch-alongs where you were watching somebody watch sports. And we started doing a lot of those on Twitch Sports channel, but you couldn't actually see the pictures or hear the video, which seemed a little bit weird, right? That we were looking for a second screen technology, knowing that this audience wasn't going to traditional television, but we still weren't even allowing them to watch the game. And then fate intervened. Our department ended up getting a call from Amazon in the summer of 2020 saying that, hey, that they had licensed the rights to Thursday Night Football and asked us what we wanted to do with it. And, these are the type of calls that you really dream of getting, is the opportunity to work with a really amazing rights holder like the NFL, and then Amazon, who is obviously the big brother of Twitch. It was a great opportunity. And so starting in 2020, we started broadcasting NFL games on multiple creators channels all at the same time. We were making 50, 60 versions of the show, different versions of the show every single week, and ultimately helped bring the median age of the NFL down 11 years on Thursday nights, which is pretty impressive. Although the average viewer of the NFL is in its 60s, and we were bringing in a whole bunch of teenagers in early 20s. So we were really able to affect that median age quite drastically. And after doing that for a couple of years at Twitch, really saw the writing on the wall in terms of the way that the social media landscape was evolving. And for years, I was working with creators who were exclusive to Twitch. And suddenly, the end of kind of 2022, 2023, a lot of those exclusive deals went away and all the creators started streaming everywhere. And so took the opportunity to leave Twitch and found Creator Sports Network. And essentially what we do is we're a platform that empowers creators to be live sports channels in an instant. So we go handle all of the technology, the licensing, everything to allow a creator to be the best version of themselves, which is to hang out and watch interesting stuff with their community. It just so happens that with Creator Sports Network, they get to watch live sports with their community.
It's really neat. And as the landscape is changing from a linear perspective, and like we're trying to build bridges and how to go and to build new audience, it feels like that you guys like really naturally bridge that gap. And we're going to come back to it. But Barrick, one thing that I feel like gets sort of glossed over in conversation, but there was like instrumental timing in when you guys got the call for some of the work you were doing with the NFL was COVID. And I want to go back and just sort of understand through your lens, what were some of the macro trends that you were able to pick up on from a consumer behavior pre-COVID to where we exist now? Did you ever think that there would be an appetite for streamers to be able to go ahead and sort of use their platforms in this way, or like what were some of the big takeaways from that COVID experience?
Yeah, I think that a lot of businesses, particularly entertainment and sports, there's going to be the pre-COVID and after COVID because it was a seminal moment for everybody. And I think that, life is timing sometimes. Being at Twitch during the pandemic was definitely a life is timing moment. Everybody was trying to figure out, how do we create live entertainment? How do we go live from home? How do we create that interaction that all of us really missed, that human interaction that everybody was really not getting the opportunity to have while at COVID. And don't get it twisted. I think that COVID really accelerated a lot of things in the entertainment business, particularly the feeling of working from home. Remy production was like a nascent thing that like, wow, like the producers don't have to travel and we don't need a truck. Now, I mean, almost everything's in the cloud. And I think that we really have COVID to thank for that. I do believe that during that COVID year, part of the reason why the NFL made the decision to go with Amazon and Twitch was because that they really wanted to try to really get that human connection back that we weren't getting from actually going to the stadium. And so part of me feels that without COVID, Creator Sports Network wouldn't exist. And the cracks in the dam of the way that the entertainment business was pre and post COVID were they got exponentially bigger once we showed what was really possible with remote production and the way that we could actually create something really, really compelling. And so I really look back on those moments as kind of the seminal moments of what helped us move this direction for sure.
It's really interesting. I mean, sitting in this seat, I think you said timing is everything. And we get the chance to talk to founders that some of it was what we'll call look like catastrophic and major pivots, and some of it was accelerants, right? And I think that we would have drawn this transition out into how do we actually leverage platforms beyond linear distribution to go ahead and actually drive meaningful results for both the right holders, but also the end user. And I think it's incredibly challenging when you look at some of these legacy properties, like how do you connect with millennial and younger? It's a different world. And so, one of the things that you talk about is, the future of sports will have like 1 million ESPNs, right? Rather than one linear network. Unpack for us sort of that concept with what that actually means for the fans and for the right holders as the network continues to grow out.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that social media really allowed is just in general, humans, birds of the feather flock together. Right. And it used to be that like you had to hang out with the people in your neighborhood or your cul-de-sac, right? Whether you like them or not, right? You had to hang out with them. But what social media has allowed is it's allowed everybody to find their flock in a group of people who they really like to be around, regardless of geography. And so really one of the tenets of Creator Sports Network is why try to change people's behavior? It doesn't really take a rocket scientist to say, well, how about instead of trying to get the audience to move to where we want them to, let's just take the content to where they already are. And once you kind of start to cross that bridge, then it starts to think like, okay, well, what does that really mean? And when you really start to drill down a little bit further in terms of like the way that communities are really kind of created in social media and these groups of friends that really start to coalesce around a community or a creator, it started to become obvious that, well, wait a second, that, you hear a lot about the death of monoculture, right? Is that there's no longer that one beacon of truth that everybody goes to, that they get the same story. Now that story is disseminated into hundreds and thousands of different of opinions. And why should I be dictated by whatever the network's opinion is? And so once you cross that bridge into like, wait a second, that these communities are something that you can really activate, candidly, the light bulb really went off for us at Creator Sports Network when we really started to think about creators as television channels. And no different in the way that CBS and NBC look at their affiliates. And when you look at a network broadcast, when you hear about the ratings for the Super Bowl, for example, you don't get the ratings from their Des Moines, Iowa station or their San Francisco station even, right? You get a holistic look at what all of the local stations that NBC had in every single jurisdiction in the United States, and they add all those up to get you a number. And so we started to really look at creators like affiliates, but we're not beholden to a brick and mortar building or geographical location, and it really becomes ultimately scalable to go from, as we kind of talked about, a million ESPNs. We really believe that the future looks like a million plus of their own pundits driving culture, as opposed to monoculture coming from an executive that decided that, this sportscaster gets to be famous this week.
It's super interesting. And I couldn't agree with you more, right? Like, we're going through generational transformation, specifically within the sports world, how we develop, how we participate, how we consume. We're being forced to change at a rapid pace here. And as a byproduct of that, we're watching a lot of new expressions of sports come online. So, Barrick, one thing that I want to unpack is, like on the Profluent side, we watch a lot of emerging leagues come online. And the typical mechanism is we're going to do a time buy with one of the linear platforms and hope that we can sell ads against it. Let's put the hat on. I know, maybe double, right? Yeah. Let's put the hat on as a right holder or as a rights holder. Walk me through the experience, with some of the groups that you guys have had success with and how this actually works in practice.
Yeah, and I think that one thing to be important to mention is that we believe that Creator Sports Network, and how we've ultimately facilitated this, is we've created a brand new rights window that never existed before, which is called the live social creator window. And we think that that is an and solution, not an or solution. This isn't something that you're choosing between, do I go down the television route or do I go down the social media route? The answer is you have to be everywhere. You have to be on TV. You have to have your own direct-to-consumer. You have to be on AVOD and SVOD and PVOD and TVOD. You have to have your own OTT platform. And we believe that the future is that everybody's going to have creator-led distribution. And so for the rights holders that we're talking to, we ultimately kind of position this as kind of a youth-focused solution. It's really, the path is worn specifically with kind of traditional network analytics. And so when we talk to an emerging league, it's really important for them to have young fans. The lifetime value of a 15-year-old versus a 60-year-old is quite different. And so what we really position this specifically with the rights holder is that this is your 18 to 34-year-old solution. This is not something that is going to be cannibalistic to any of the deals that you're doing in traditional television. 99% of the audience that's coming to YouTube and TikTok doesn't have any plans to go to a traditional television broadcast. And so you do have to have both of these paths covered as an emerging channel, but we really kind of focus on creating fandom out of young people to kind of create that long tail life cycle of a fan, as opposed to just viewers.
No, it's really neat. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys cover the gambit, right? It's emerging leagues and then all the way through some of your more traditional, sports properties that we know today. Is that right?
Yeah. And I'd say that, to your point, Scott, the emerging leagues are some of our best customers, our favorite customers. Why? Because they need to think a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. And they know they need to think a little bit different. So, and the other thing that really helps us is that they don't have long-term legacy deals that end in 2031 that potentially other rights holders have tied up. And so we do run the gamut all the way from kind of AAA rated kind of soccer leagues all the way down to emerging leagues. And I'll say that our audience really loves to index on these emerging leagues and these new things that people don't see. The word premium in our space is in the eye of the beholder. In the traditional world, premium might mean the big five sports. Premium to Creator Sports Network might mean OVW wrestling and A7FL football.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting. And the further you get down this rabbit hole, there's all kinds of these communities that have, really profitable leagues that surround them. I mean, the Urban Disc Golf League, I had no clue existed, but it is a thriving league with a real community, and they typically don't get the same airtime, but there is real opportunities there to continue to grow and capture more eyeballs. Barrick, let's go to the other side of the marketplace now, right? We talk a little bit about rights holders and how they sit in position and what the benefit is. We've watched the expression of creators come in to like a Ballers League with iShowSpeed or a Drewski, doing some stuff, in and around the NFL and really all sports. How do you guys think about creators? What makes you a creator? Is it only the folks that have millions of followers? Does that span all the way down into the micro world? How do you guys define that? And then the second question is like, how do you make sure that they're aligned with the stuff that and educated on the sports that they're going to be broadcasting?
Yeah, I'd say that we have a really wide definition of creator, all the way from the superstars that you mentioned, iShowSpeed, all the way down to people who are just getting started with hundreds of creators. We say often internally that the next great superstar in sports hasn't even started creating yet. That person is still in junior high somewhere, who hasn't even gotten their start. So ultimately, we don't really put an upper or a lower limit on creators at this point. It's really about driving an ecosystem around all creators. And I'll say that, well, one of the reasons why a lot of creators really love to work with us is because we're the easy button. When you think about being a creator, the hardest thing is, what do I create today? Right? And if you're a serious full-time creator, that is an everyday thing for you. 365 days, you wake up and what do I create today? Some people are really, really creative to come up with really awesome stuff. Some creators struggle at that. And so what we do is create the easy button to where all you have to do to create content today is just show up with your community and watch some sports. And you get the opportunity to pick your sport. And so we believe that, there's a couple of different ways to go about this. Ultimately, you can partner with the couple of superstars that are out there that will deliver you network style numbers, or you need an army of creators. And that's ultimately what we're really focused on, is building that army. And then to your second point, Scott, how do we educate them? Technology, where we're headed. We need technology to essentially run the entire ecosystem. So we have multiple opportunities for creators to come in and check out what the broadcast schedule looks like. They get to choose, self-service their own events, sign up. It automatically adds them to a channel that will bring game notes, player notes, all the type of aspects that we usually are getting from the league, who's providing them to their normal broadcasters, right? We're taking those game notes and those storylines and giving them to the creators so they can add a little bit more color to their broadcasts. And we found that has been really great across the full ecosystem, all the way from, sports that we know in the global soccer and college football world, all the way down to these emerging sports that they're really educating themselves and then their audience. And what we really find is like really magical is when the creators and the audience don't know much about what they're watching, because like some magic happens to where they all get to figure it out on their own. And invariably somebody in chat knows the answer. And one of the best examples that I have of that, and this is actually a real world example for me, is we had recently partnered with the rodeo with Teton Ridge and broadcast a number of rodeos with a number of really high level creators, Summit 1G, Landmark, Hutch, and a few others. And these guys had never watched rodeo before. Right. And they're sitting there and they're watching the bulls and they're like, okay, 84. Why is it in 84? And the creator's like, how in the world does the bull get scored? And me as a viewer, I'm sitting going, how does the bull get scored? Yeah. Right. And then what happened is somebody in chat knew the answer. And they came in and they said, hey, you want to know what? Like the bull gets 1 out of 50 points and the rider gets 1 out of 50 points. And you add them together and that gets your score. And all of a sudden, the 37,000 people who happened to be watching that day, if they didn't know how a bull was scored, they knew now. And it was even, for me, I had no idea how that happened until I was watching these streams.
How interesting, right? And we always say, in order to build fandom, there's always a layer of education, right? And one of the hardest things is, how do I trust and show up in a way where I'm vulnerable to learn and not like pretend and fake it till I make it, right? And that's seemingly been one of the benefits of these micro communities that take place online. Is, it's like a Reddit thread, you're able to go ahead and start to learn things that go on. And in real time, that builds education, which then builds deeper fandom, which I'm going to sort of naturally lead myself into the next question, but I'm really curious, now you start to build affinity to a creator that is, week over week, day over day, sort of reporting on these different events. How do advertisers and sponsors think about the creator-led live engagement compared to like traditional ad buys? Like, because seemingly there has to be dollars flowing somewhere, especially if you have 37,000 people on a live. Talk to me about the mechanics on the economic side.
Yeah, so we are primarily the main driver for revenue for us is brands.
Yep.
And so ultimately the kind of existential question here is, how do you advertise in a medium that doesn't really have commercials, right? Because the live streamers don't go to commercial. They don't like push a button and like have their own kind of commercials. Now, sometimes the game goes to a break, right? And networks run commercials, not feeds, right? So the feed that we're getting is void of commercials. And so we are utilizing those kind of traditional breaks to serve what would look and feel more like traditional ads. Now we're shrinking the screen side by side, kind of the stuff that you're seeing in traditional network television. So we're not taking the full screen for these ads, but running video assets. And then a lot of it is really with graphical stuff, like little lower thirds in where you have the brand represented the entire time. So there is no ad break. It's like this segment is brought to you by this brand who's going to be in every frame of video for the next 2 hours. And then the final thing, which is really a lot of the magic where a lot of this stuff happens, is the chat box. It's so rudimentary that, hey, there are people writing some words in a box. But that's really where all the interaction comes. And so utilizing chat bots and pin chats and other kind of creative ways to have calls of action to actually send the audience to a specific destination that the brand wants to. But it's one of those things that is evolving, right? And we're coming up with new ways to integrate brands all the time, and even going a little bit back in time to the radio, right? And having creators do ad reads, old school.
It's super cool. And like, I mean, I put my consumer hat on, and it's always neat, like when you have the creator speaking to you, right? And you want it to be organic. It's with what they endorse, right? Because there's always that fine line of, are you selling me, or like, do you actually use it? And once you lose authenticity, I think it could have negative ripple effects. But, you know, like, I mean, when we hear from sponsors, everything is like, we want to sell through communities. We don't want to just blast into the ether and hope that we're reaching the right eyeballs. It's how do we actually track this, build trust? And you talked about the LTV earlier. You know, it's how do we continue to build brand loyalty and capture them younger and younger? And sports continues to be that medium, but linear is not the right way, you know, or not necessarily capturing that audience. And so, you know, Barrick, like, I'm going to sort of zoom out a little bit of the mechanics here, right? You've been on the tip of the spear and where the creator network's going, how fans are consuming. We're at this unique inflection point. Technology is rampant right now. We're moving so fast. New sports are coming online. Where do you see the space going over the next 3 to 5 years? What's got you most excited?
I think that the hypothesis is that every major sport and media company is going to need a version of their own creator sports network, whether it's us partnering with them or another company that comes in and ultimately competes with us, or creating their own internal divisions, which we're certainly seeing. I think that the future is going to look like, just like maybe in 2018, 2019, when some executives were running around with a new thing called FAST that everybody was looking at and saying, ooh, that is never going to work. And now every single media company in the world has a FAST channel. We believe that is the future state for Creator Sports Network, that every major media business is going to be leaning into distributing with creators. Now, will they create their own division and manage it on their own? Or will they work with technology to manage the scale? Our bet is that we're going to be one of those solutions, maybe not the only solution, but certainly the future of creator-led distribution is something that is just going to get bigger and bigger. And we think even outside of sports, you can think of news and concerts and all types of experiences that creators can essentially be our tastemakers. And Scott, you really hit on the magic word here. And one of the reasons why this audience is really leaning into the creators is because of the authenticity, right? And you even mentioned, you're just like, you know, sometimes you fake it till you make it. Well, the reason why these creators have this community is that they're not faking it till you make it. They'll sit here and they'll say, I don't know how this works. And it creates an inclusive environment that everybody can learn together. Like, imagine walking into a sports bar and turning and asking some guy, how do you get a first down? Or what's offsides mean? They would look at you like you're crazy. And what are you doing in this bar, where in this community where these groups have gotten together? It's so inclusive that they're able to ask these type of questions, and we see them all learning together, which is so much more powerful than telling them, is allowing them to learn on their own.
Absolutely. And it's a heck of a lot more enjoyable, right? Like it's sticky. It's like you're part of it now.
You're
And I
engaged, you're invested, right? And what the outcome is, and like not only is this creator my friend, it's all the people in chat who have become my friends as well.
I couldn't agree more. And we always talk about you put on a Seahawks jersey in San Francisco and all of a sudden you have 50,000 new friends last weekend, right? Like, and now like this is the extension of that where linear television, it was just the people that I was watching it with. I used to have to go to the bar to find that community. And now that seemingly shows up in your lap, which, you know, in the world where seemingly we're more connected, but yet we're yearning for community engagement more now than ever. I think it's a very astute way to think about the forward direction of building fandom and community using sports as the anchor tenant there. Barrick, I got two more questions for you before we sort of turn the corner and bring this thing home. You know, a lot of what, you know, sort of how I was approaching this was through the Western world, right? Sort of the big four emerging sports here. When you look at some of the other countries that, you know, if we look at live shopping in Asia, they've leapfrogged us. You know, infrastructure is mobile first. How do you guys think about creator sports and leveraging, you know, other markets outside the domestic US? And if so, like, have you been able to catch any traction there?
Yeah, we look at ourselves as a global business. Social media doesn't have walls, right? And so it is allowing fans and creators to develop audience everywhere around the world. And we're really kind of leaning into that. We ultimately have already worked in 10 different languages. We've broadcast in 56 different countries already. So really looking at this real globally. Actually, this weekend we'll be broadcasting in 3 languages in 8 or 9 countries. So really looking at this as the globe. That's one of the great things about sports. Sports is universal, right? It's almost you can watch it without any sound on, and the same type of storylines are really playing out. And so a lot of our earliest partners, certainly on the rights side of things, have been foreign organizations. So the Austrian Bundesliga, the German Bundesliga, the Brazilian Serie A, the Portuguese league. So these are some kind of international leagues. We've done some PFL international stuff, and so really they are specifically looking for us to bring their content to the United States. But we've also worked with one of the big 3 networks, bringing their content 12 Arabic countries in Arabic language, right? And this is one of the big 3 that you're talking about, where we're kind of focusing on helping them develop a community outside the United States in a language that's not necessarily English.
It's going to be, I mean, we got the NBA going over and, you know, making their move into Europe. You know, we'll have 9 or 10 international NFL games next year. I mean, the games are global. And I love that there's no barriers on social, right? And so now what's the quickest way to gain traction and educate? It's show up with a familiar face and put a different product behind it. And so like you can see at the end of this conversation, there's real world application. This might be sequencing a little out of order here, but I'm genuinely curious, right? In the domestic sporting market, betting has just become such a mainstay, right? And again, everyone's trying to acquire books. Their customer acquisition costs are through the roof. How do they look at something like Creator Sports Network? Are you guys doing anything or see a betting direction as you start to equip these creators with tools to broadcast, different sports?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we have been exploring. I think that certainly the brand new prediction markets are sending some really interesting signals. Certainly all the big boys are getting into the prediction markets. Yep. I think the way that we're looking at it right now is less through the guise of partnering with one of the big books. We actually think that the best scenario for at least what we do, creator-led distribution, is more peer-to-peer. So more like connecting friends who want to gamble against each other, wager against each other, as opposed to a version of the house or a trading market. And so right now we're kind of in the process of developing our own peer-to-peer type of site to really focus on that. And I think that, I will say that, and unquestionably now, this may change in the future, that wagering on a game is the most exciting and dynamic interaction that you can have with sports, right?
Yeah.
They almost are synonymous. And for years and years, we tried to keep everything separate. Now you're seeing the leagues really start to lean in and have partnerships of their own. Players are having partnerships directly with some of these platforms as well. And so unquestionably, this is an area that we're going to be focused on, although probably, as everything we do, a little bit of zigging while everybody else is zagging.
Yeah, that's what makes you special, man. You know, I love it. And so, I mean, look, and I could sit here and talk to you all day. I genuinely think this is one of the most fascinating areas of innovation that's happening right now. And, we're seemingly humanizing the technology and platform that's been put at our fingertips and really pushing this forward with responsibility. And then, Barrick, I from Profluence, so grateful. I think the question I want to leave you with as we take this home, but what advice would you give other founders that are truly redefining legacy industries with modern platforms from all of your sort of tenure and expertise of building or leading the pack from the front?
I'd say my biggest advice is believe in your gut, no matter what people are telling you. If you believe that there is a path to success, then it's really about grinding. I have a feeling that Creator Sports Network is going to be an overnight success in 2028, right? 5 years in, and we're really going to be hitting our stride. A lot of naysayers told us we couldn't get rights and couldn't get creators and all of the things that we're ultimately proving them wrong. But ultimately, I'd say really just grind, because there are no shortcuts here. I wish there were. We try to take them, but ultimately it's about, finding a problem that you're solving with conviction and then going and solving it while blocking out all of the noise and the naysayers.
Bang. Drop the mic. Barrick, from myself and the Profluence team, thank you for all the incredible work you're doing to push the ecosystem forward. And we look forward to continuing to watch your journey. And I'll sign off like every good podcast does. If there's any creators, investors, rights holders that are listening that want to get in touch with you or the team, what's the best way to do so?
Probably the best place to start is our website at creatorsports.net. And that'll be the best way to get a hold of us.
And well, listen, thank you so much for everything. Excited to continue to watch the journey, and we'll do it again soon, my friend.
Appreciate the time.
Cheers, brother.
Thanks for having me.